Good to see you here tonight. Welcome to the first night of the Life series. It's good you're here. You guys are the you are the very first bunch of people to a Life series who have arrived on the first night on time. Yeah. So we start on a happy note. That's really good. Can I start with a bit of a story? When I was sort of, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, my old man took me and my brother and my wife, Nicole, to Fiji for a week or so. And we went around the place. My dad's into choir singing, in Fiji. It's a big thing, cultural thing, right? And so we go around the place visiting different things, and he has these connections. And so one day we were making our way to a choir practice of this massive Fijian choir, but we just missed it. And so we walked in there and it was all done and dusted. But then they sort of found out that we had come to see them, and so they got back together for a little bit of a performance. And so there's this hall, it's like a community hall, and there's 4 chairs. And I'm in one, and my old man's in another, and my brother's in another, and my wife's in another, and we're just sitting there, the only people in this hall, except for 80 big Fijians singing at the top of their lungs right in our faces. And it was intense, it was a little uncomfortable, it was a little bit weird. And I only share that story with you to say, maybe tonight you've come along expecting something uncomfortable, intense, and weird. And I just want to say, we hope that's not the case. And we hope that tonight is relaxing and helpful and engaging, and just a time for you to think about something that maybe we're busy, we go along with the rush of life, and we don't often pause to think about spiritual things. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. So we're going to do for the next 5 weeks on Wednesday nights. We're going to look into life with Jesus. So here's how the night works. Basically, in a minute I'm going to invite Conan up, and I'm going to get to know him a little bit before he speaks on this topic, looking into life with Jesus. He'll speak for about 20 minutes or so. If you have sort of thoughts rolling around in your head, I mean, we always advertise this thing as a place where you can bring your questions. And so he might say something and you think, I've got a question about that. What we do is, after he finishes speaking, we have a break. Some people are going to come around and give you free food. So it's really nice cake. Have 1 piece, have 2, have 3, have another coffee, enjoy yourself. But during that time, and maybe even during the talk itself, you might want to scribble down a question or 2. And what I'm going to do is come around to the tables, say hello, introduce myself if I haven't met you before. I'm going to grab that piece of paper from you, and I'm going to ask that on your behalf. And that's because we realise that a thing like this, if you've got a question, it might be a personal question. You might not be the sort of person who loves sticking your hand up and saying something in front of a room full of people you never met before. And so I'm going to do that for you. That's how we finish the night. So we'll finish up about 9 o'clock. That's pretty much it. Quick raise of your hand if you're gluten-free, and we're going to organise something for you. 1, 2, 2. There we go. One of the waiters can remember that. Or June if you can hear me too. So the people slaving away out there, so we can eat some nice food a bit later on. Toilets are out here. You may have seen them on your way in. So out that door and to your left, male and female. And I think that's it. So Connor, do you want to come up? Give him a round of applause. So this is Connor. Why don't you, Connor, just give us a bit about yourself? Can we hear, if you were to go tell us about a good holiday that you have been on before?
I reckon one of the ones that stands out, we went to New Zealand about 3 years ago. We went for 3 weeks. I visited a mate and stayed with them for several days, and then travelled in a big kind of bus, so my wife and 3 kids, and we went from North Island and drove and went around all the bottom and came all the way back up again. We stayed in youth hostels the whole time, and because it was 5 of us, we pretty much had the whole room to ourselves every single time. We didn't have a random in there, which was kind of good, because that would have been awkward. My whole family and then this person. So it was good not having that. But the brilliant thing about it was you had really, really nice spots in really good places and you paid nothing for it. So I remember we were in one place where we had water right in front of us, this magnificent mountains and stuff. And then we were in the youth hostel, which was paying like $100 for a night for 5 of us. But then behind us was the Ritzy Peppers, and they had a worse view than us. And it was really good that we were staying in such a cheap place. And it's just great. Our kids were at the right age where they didn't kill each other too much, and they enjoyed the different scenery. So yeah,
cool. You mentioned your family. Tell us. You've said you've got a wife and 3 kids. Tell us about them. Who are they? How old are they?
So Belinda and my wife, and then 3 kids: Jay, Josh, Sarah, 19, 17, and 15.
Cool. And tell us real quick. Don't spend too long. Your favourite movie. Some of us here know this answer
and roll their eyes.
Here we go again.
Yeah. I reckon there's between 2 different ones. Feedback, I think. So The Matrix is probably the one that I enjoy the most, and there's also Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, complete difference. But yeah, just fun with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And Matrix is just clever, and it was cool when it came out, as in the special effects and stuff like that. But just the way, the cleverness of how they've woven so many bits and pieces into it, and how they build on each other. So I'll stop there because I want to.
Okay, cool. So we're looking into life with Jesus. So safe to say you're a follower of Jesus. Have you always been? And if not, give us a quick take of how you became a follower of Jesus.
Yeah, so I grew up in a home where Dad's not a believer at all. Doesn't really believe in God. Mum kind of believes it a bit. I've got 2 older brothers. The eldest one is not a Christian, and the middle one is a Christian. And it was when I was about 19. So I went to a religious school. I thought that was weird and it was annoying. In chapel you couldn't smile or you get in trouble. And the Christian teachers, there's only a couple of them, but they were just odd. And so the whole weird thing was just there. And so it wasn't until I was out of school that I was talking to a friend on the phone, and we were talking about the Bible and was it reliable, and from that I went along to something similar to this. And over several period of time, I thought a Christian was someone who was good and tried to be good, and it was over that period of time that I recognised it wasn't that. And that will come out obviously over the 5 weeks. And yeah, from that period of time that the light bulb kind of went on, and I kind of started following Jesus from there. So that was 19.
Cool, we're going to leave it with you now. Again, if you've got any questions, you've got a piece of paper there, you've got a pen there, write it down. I'll come around and see you later.
So I just want to start off with, if someone asked you, what is a good life? They don't feel free that you have to yell it out. But if someone said to you, what's a good life? What pops into your mind? Yell it out if you want it. Good life. What do you reckon?
Fiji holidays.
Fiji holidays, yes. Awesome. Actually been thinking about it. I was talking to a friend about it the other day. Exactly that one. Money? Yeah, okay.
Fat, happy, content.
What, happy, content?
Fat, happy,
Fat, happy, content. Okay. Sounds like my dog. Yeah. Sounds good, good. Actually, she's on the diet because kids keep feeding her too much.
It's Enzo, Connor.
Sorry?
It's Enzo.
Fat, happy, and content. Yeah, that's right. In a capsule. Does he get cake as well? No. Other things?
Health.
Health, yeah.
Family.
Family? Yeah.
Love.
Love. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of different things, isn't there? I mean, there could be, some people think excitement. You know, for me, it could be a perfect wave on a day off. It could be catching up with friends and just hanging out with them, or a beer and watching footy with mates, or going out for a coffee with girlfriends, or that type of thing. It could be no pressure, or the kids behaving all the time. Yeah, that's almost a miracle. But no pressure, maybe no financial stress, or maybe no deadlines, you know, because you're always busy. Or it could be love, it could be health, those type of things. It could be feeling like you've achieved stuff. So sometimes people really enjoy work because that makes you feel like, yeah, I'm achieving things and therefore life is good. Sometimes it's not just love of maybe romantic, but it could be with a partner, it could be with the relationships with your kids are good, or grandkids, or maybe it's wider family, or maybe it is with friends and relationships are really humming. Maybe it's happy, but don't really know what that looks like. But the thing is, I think even when we get lots of all those things that we've just mentioned, we get lots of that sometimes seems like there's something missing. And there's there was this guy, this king, a guy called Solomon, and he was filthy rich. He was kind of like the Bill Gates of our time. And he wanted to suss out how to be happy. He wanted to suss out what was the good life. And so he tried everything, and because he was so wealthy, he could do everything. And because he had so much power, he could do everything. So he did this experiment, if you want to say it that way. And he's a real guy in history. His name is Solomon, and he was in the first part of the Bible. So the Bible has the Old Testament, it's the first chunk, the second chunk's the New Testament. This is part of a book called Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. And I'm going to read out a little bit of it, of what he said he was going to try and do. So this is from Ecclesiastes, and this is Solomon saying, recording what he did. He said, "Come now, I'll test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their life. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater, by far, than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me." So he looks, this guy Solomon, this king, looks for the good life. And he pretty much tried every scene. He initially tried laughter, party, drugs, and it's people who are probably like in their late teens or 20s. They're trying to get as much excitement as they possibly can. It's kind of like the surface holidays after the HSC. Or it's those who are older who never get out of that lifestyle, like Mick Jagger. Solomon tried that pleasure, and then he kind of did the other thing, the Australian way when you're in your 20s to 40s. It's the better homes and gardens. It's the block. It's making where you live as nice as it possibly could be. He did renovating, did gardening. And then he had tried other things to make himself to try and feel good to get this good life. He tried retail therapy. So, when you go to Westfield, and you actually get, psychologists tell you actually get a hit when you buy something. You often feel good, don't you, when you buy something? And he tried that. Then he tried money, amassing it, getting more and more and more. So he could spend to enjoy life, or maybe to spend to get superannuation to have a secure life at the end. He also tried working really, really hard, so he could see if he could get satisfaction from achieving things. He tried sex. He said he had a harem, lots of it. He looked for the good life, all these different places. And he could do it because he had the power and he had the money, so he could do things that we wish that we could do, but we can't. And then he does all that, and he comes to his conclusion. And it's on the screen. He said, "I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labour, and this was a reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done, and what I toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun." So Solomon tries everything. Tries a good life, but meaningless. It's kind of like chasing after the wind. If you try and do it, you can never get it. You're never quite satisfied. Something more, something deeper, something, if I just get that, I'll be finally satisfied. And it seems like that's what we can face as well. We can feel, if I could just get that one thing, I'd be satisfied. The things that we spoke at the beginning, you think if you're a young parent, I could just get rest. Or if the kids would behave. Or maybe it is, I could get that holiday that I want. Or the relationship, if I could get this relationship happening, and that would make me feel so good, life would be great. Or if I got that job, or maybe if I got that promotion, and that would give me a bit more money, and then if I had that, then I'd be content. Maybe if I got my circle of friends, people actually cared about me enough, and that would be deeply satisfying. And the problem is we go those things, and even when we get those things, just like Solomon, can sometimes feel it's just not quite enough. There needs to be something more. And we feel, and we see that it's what Solomon did, but we can see that today. People who have it all, who we think, I'd love to be like that, a bit like Solomon, end up feeling empty. They have everything that they want, but they don't feel satisfied. This guy, Owen Wilson, famous actor, not a great actor. Marley and Me was alright, Zoolander, don't know what was that. But good looking? I don't know, he looks like a football player who's done a few too many tackles. But a guy who had a fair bit. In 2007, he was rushed to hospital after taking pills and slitting his wrists. Someone who had everything. Or take Halle Berry. Beautiful, wealthy, money, good looks. She tried to commit suicide by trying to gas herself to death in the car. Or Mel Gibson had pretty much everything he wanted, and top of the world. And he was interviewed before he did the movie The Passion, and this is what he said. I quote: "I battled with suicide. No matter what the world offered, there was never enough to satisfy me. I kept eating it up, but I was empty. I was spiritually bankrupt." Simone Battle was part of the group called GRL, or Girl, and had beauty, fame, and kind of the type of person every teenage girl would love to be. And she committed suicide in 2014. Has everything, and yet empty. The greatest swimmer that has ever lived, and that is not an overstatement, but Michael Phelps, 28 medals, more than many countries, 4 Olympics. I like swimming, and this guy is ridiculous. He is at the top, probably one of the best athletes ever. And he had girls, he had money, he had fame, and he went to drugs and to reckless living. And he said, it was in the paper, but he said, "I was a train wreck. I was a time bomb waiting to go off. I had no self-esteem, no self-worth. There were times where I didn't want to be here. It was not good. I felt lost." Really? What more could you want than this guy? I mean, what else could he have? And even since the Laugh Life series, another person, Avicii, or Tim Berglund, 20-year-old, 8-year-old, some of you may not know him, but he's the guy with dance music. He's a superstar. Massive, like probably some of his hits. And he worked with Madonna, he worked with Coldplay. And May of this year, he committed suicide at 28. Very, very, very clever. And his family had this letter, an open letter, and they said this: he really struggled with thoughts about meaning, life, and happiness, just what we're talking about. He could not go on any longer. He wanted to find peace. And how sad is it? All these people have, the world says, go for this, and we think, yeah, if I get that, I'll be happy. But they haven't, just like Solomon, and they're not. We want the good life, we strive for all these different things, but there's something missing. At the end of the year, Google puts out the most common searches on different categories. For the 2014, the most Googled recipe was pancakes. Don't know why, pretty easy to make, but anyhow. The question, who is ... in 2014, the most looked up person in Australia was Jesus. People are searching for something. I don't know what Red Food's doing there, but pretty significant guy. People want to know who Australia was, in Australia, who Jesus was. And also, God was number 8 on this list. And this is a country like Australia. We know there's something missing. We're kind of searching. There's that deep down, something not quite right. And we feel there's something missing because I would say that we're all worshippers. There's something missing because we're all worshippers. I'm not talking about religion at this point, but there's something we give our life to try and get the good life. We give our life to it. We're made to worship something, and we all worship something in order to feel that satisfaction and contentment and the good life. We pursue something, we think, if I get that, I will feel good. And we worship something to pursue it, to make us feel good. It could be satisfaction, it could be purpose. It could be self-worth. If I can get that whole, then I'll feel good. Maybe we pursue a marriage, or it could be a great job, or it could be the dream home, or it could be the recognition at home or at work, or it could be the kid having the best kids, and I'll pour my life not into myself but into my children, and that will be the thing that gives me satisfaction. Or it may be the most fun I have. Whatever it is, we pursue something. We all do it in order to try and achieve what we think will be the good life. And these things that we worship can be good things, obviously, in themselves. Like all the things I mentioned are good things. But we live for them. And these things are good things in themselves, but they can crush us if we pursue them to get ultimate meaning. Or you try and grab them and you get a feeling of emptiness. They can't hold up, these good things can't hold up under the weight of giving us deep satisfaction, even though they're good things in themselves. See, we've been made to worship. And I think we've been made to worship God. And it's in Him that we find the good life. It's in Him that we find deep satisfaction. And the astonishing, I reckon amazing or even outlandish thing is, Jesus claims to give the good life. He was a real man. Jesus was a real man. He walked the dusty streets of Nazareth 2,000 years ago. We could jump on a plane right now and go and visit where he grew up, where he walked and taught and did amazing things. He was a real person. He was a Jewish person, and at the age of 30, he started doing public stuff. He started teaching people publicly and started doing amazing things like healing people. And he did lots of teaching, so much so, people were spun out by what he said. And so crowds used to gather around him to listen to him because he was such an amazing speaker. And he was talking at one time how he was like a shepherd, how he loved people, he was kind to people and looked after people. And then he said this, and this is just from an eyewitness account, a guy called John who wrote it, and Jesus said this, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." So Jesus is saying, I'm the one who's willing to give deep satisfaction if you come into a relationship with me. Jesus says, if you want the full life, I'm it. I mean, that's a pretty big claim, isn't it? Massive claim, I think. To say that Jesus is the person that you come to give you the good life is pretty astonishing. But the reason that Jesus claims to give the good life is even more astounding. He claims to give the good life, but the reason he claims to give the good life that's even bigger is because he claims to be God. Now, that's huge, and I'll pick up on that in a sec. I said that we've been made to worship something, and to try and to do that, we do that to get the good life. But we should worship God, and Jesus says, I am God, and that's why if you come to know me and worship me, that's why you'll have the good life. Now, some people listening to Jesus saying this type of thing, they took offence. Such a big claim. And this is what happened. So people listening to him, people surrounding him, again the Jewish people picked up stones to stone him, that is Jesus. But Jesus said to them, I've shown you many great miracles from the Father. For which of these do you stone me? We are not stoning you for any of these, replied the Jews, but for blasphemy. Because you, notice this last sentence, because you, a mere man, claim to be God. The Jewish people thought there was one God, and Jesus claims to be this God. And so they get up to go stone Jesus, not the marijuana type, but the rock type, where you take rocks and you throw them at the person in order to kill them. And they did that, death by rocks, because he claimed to be God. They heard him loud and clear, and they went, really? You need to die. Do you see that we want the good life? We try to grab so many things to get the good life, and then we start worshipping certain things, pouring our life into certain things to get this good life, but kind of don't feel like it's quite working all the time. And Jesus says, look, actually, if you want the good life, come to me, because I am God. Now that claim is over the top excessive. It's over the top, it's arrogant, unless it's true. Aussie blokes are pretty good at overstating things. We're often a bit arrogant. Think we're a bit too good. They did this study one time and they found out that 70% of guys thought that they were above average at sport. Maybe good at sport, not good at maths. And now, but to claim to be God, that is ridiculous. Over the top. Say you've never met me before and I meet you at the door and say, "Hi, my name's Conan, I'm God." I mean, what do you do with someone who says that? What options do you actually have for someone who makes that claim? Jesus made that claim. No doubt about it. What do you do with someone who does that outrageous claim? I think there's a few options. I mean, the first one is the person could be a lunatic, couldn't they? They're not quite right mentally. They think they are something or someone that everybody around them can recognise that they're not. You, God. If I did meet you at the door and I did say, "Hi, my name's Conan and I'm God," what would you do? You'd probably back away slowly, no quick movements, and then run. Jump in the car, that's a cult. Yeah, wouldn't you? I would, if someone did that. But the thing is, the people who knew Jesus, who were actually eyewitnesses and saw what he did, people who liked Jesus, people who didn't like Jesus, when they wrote down stuff about him, they said he was anything but crazy. And these are eyewitness accounts. Jesus claims to be God, but not a lunatic. The other option it could be is he could be a liar. You know, someone who knows that you're not God, and you're doing it for some reason. Maybe you want power, maybe you want something, and you want to deceive people, maybe you want money. And again with Jesus, he didn't seem to be that type of person. I mean, he was against lying. And for the last 2,000 years, all his followers have been really against lying. So it doesn't quite make sense for him to be a liar, then start a movement where everybody didn't lie. So the other thing is that when you read his biography, the stuff about him, he doesn't seem to be the type of person who would be doing that either. So Jesus being a lunatic? Unlikely. Jesus being a liar? Unlikely. Maybe Jesus was a legend. Now, I don't just mean a really cool guy, but someone who's made up. A bit like King Arthur and the Round Table. You know, there's that legend that existed. People may have just made Jesus up. You know, he didn't really exist in history. And that's really crucial to make sure it's not the case. And for me, as I mentioned briefly before, that was massive for me. If Jesus didn't exist, then we should all go home. But the reality is the Bible says the Bible is reliable, and we're going to talk about that later another week. But can I say in summary with regard to that one, him being a legend, without a shadow of a doubt for that one, it's just not true. Jesus really did exist in history. So, lunatic, unlikely, liar, unlikely, legend, impossible. What's the last option? I think is the Lord. That this guy who's claiming to be God actually is the Lord God. God who has all power and authority. Massive claim. So is it lunatic? Is he a liar? Is he legend? Or is he Lord? And so it comes down to, in one sense, the most significant question is, who do I think Jesus is? Who do I think Jesus is? Out of those options, is he the person who is claiming to be God, the one we should worship in order to give us a full life? Who do I think he is? Jesus is not just some interesting historical figure. Because he's claiming to be God. And if he is claiming to be God, then he's worth checking out. Because think about it, if Jesus actually is claiming to be God and he is God, then it'd probably be a really good idea to listen to what he thinks about, why am I here? What's the point of life? What happens after this life? All the big things in life. And if Jesus is God, he actually says, come to me and I'll give you the good life. So it's definitely a guy worth checking out. The question is, who do I think Jesus is? I'm going to leave it there.